We live on a boat. This boat, in fact. Ocean Melody is our 50-year-old classic Bowman yacht, and she's been our family home for the past few years. We've sailed her for many miles and many months. We've anchored in some amazing places and seen some fantastic towns, villages and coastlines. And along the way we've worked steadily to make Ocean Melody a cosy, comfy place to live and a safe, well-sorted and functional sailing yacht. Everything on her now works, more or less, and apart from the obvious ongoing maintenance, we can now begin to turn our attention to the more cosmetic side of things. One thing I've been wanting to work on for a long time is the saloon table. We've had several tables in the saloon over the years, but never quite found the right one. So my plan in this episode is to try to make something really special. I'd just like to say a big thank you to Carvera for sponsoring this episode. I've always liked the look and aesthetic of epoxy river tables, and what could be more appropriate for a sailing yacht than a water-themed saloon table. I wanted to start by making a tiny model of Ocean Melody so that I could have not just a river, but a few intricate details set into the water. I first thought the best way to go about milling a tiny model of the boat was to do it from either side. Basically, mill the deck of the boat from one side of a piece of wood and then flip it over to mill the underside of the hull from the other side of the piece of wood, because unlike a 3D printer, a milling machine can't really do undercuts. But I didn't want to print something in plastic. I wanted it to be made of wood so that it really suited the look and feel of the table, almost as though it had grown out of the table. I started with some scrap pieces to test my theory. Well, that didn't really work. I did several versions of this. Something that I've realised is that you can do a rough toolpath like that, see if I can get that to focus, which gives you kind of a rough outline, and then you can change the tool and do a fine finishing pass. So that's what I'm going to do with the final boat, is cut it out with an end mill to kind of rough it out and take all the body, the meat of the stuff away, and then put on, you know, a finer milling bit, a 30-degree taper bit or something to do the finishing pass. Now that sort of worked. So I did several versions. Now this one I've done from the top and from the underneath, and that's the underneath of the hull, can you see? But getting those to line up and getting the depth exactly right would be an awful lot of faff. So I've come up with another idea for how to do this. The machine I'm using is called the Carvera Air, and it's a desktop CNC milling machine, about the same sort of size as a 3D printer. Now in standard form, the way it works is that the bed moves forwards and backwards, and the milling head, which is like a really beefed up Dremel type tool, moves left and right and up and down. But you can also fit an optional 4th axis module, which is essentially a tiny lathe. That means you can mount a piece of material in it and it rotates the material as it's milling, so you can do not just things like candlesticks, but also full 3D models. I used a nice piece of dark mahogany. I think it's mahogany anyway, but correct me if I'm wrong. I also wanted to add a bridge going across the river. We're based in North Wales, and one of our favourite places to sail is a stretch of water called the Menai Straits, which separates the Welsh mainland from the island of Anglesey. There are 2 bridges which cross the Menai Straits, but I wanted to feature Menai Bridge itself. Before the bridge existed, crossing the Menai Strait between mainland Wales and Anglesey was dangerous and unreliable. Ferries were often overwhelmed by tides, storms and fast currents, As Anglesey grew more important, especially with the Irish postal route, Britain needed a safer, permanent connection. The bridge was designed by Thomas Telford, one of Britain's greatest civil engineers. Work began in 1819 as part of the new London Holyhead Road, later the A5. It became the world's first major modern suspension bridge using massive wrought iron chains anchored to the rock on both shores. Completed and opened on the 30th of January 1826, it immediately became one of the engineering marvels of the age. My version will be a lot more modest, milled out of another little piece of wood, but I think I may have made a mistake with this particular version. The mistake I made with the first attempt was keeping the bridge proportionally in scale with itself. So whilst I shrunk it down to the right length to cross my river, that meant the width and height were absolutely minuscule. In the software that comes with the Makera, it's very, very easy to adjust things. So I was able to adjust the proportions so that it's now much wider and much taller compared to its length than the real thing. But that's fine. This isn't a scale model, it's just an art piece for the boat. I will say that the software that comes with the Makera Carvera Air, it's called a Makera Cam, and it's super easy to use. So I was able to use that for most of things with a little combination of Fusion 360 for the more complicated stuff. And I'm a complete beginner to this. I've never done any CNCing before. With the milling of those little parts going really well, it was time to turn my attention to the table itself.
So while the machine finishes the finishing pass on the bridge section, we're going to cut the timbers for the box for the underneath of the table. So what we've got here is the Western Red Cedar and some spruce for the sides and the underside. So this will be the C and this will be the air, if you get what I mean. C, air. So we can clamp this down in a bit. I'm going to put some ends on. Why is that not? Oh, it's tissue paper. We can clamp this down, attach it to this table with silicone, and then fill up here, up to here for the C, and put the boat and any other bits in, and then we can put the bridge on and fill the sky up to there, and it's all coming together bit by bit. So but this is underwater, this section. These are our end pieces which will go on the ends of the table. Got two of those, and they cap off each end, and will also form the tray for us to do our resin pour. So when we do our resin pour, it'll only go into the river section. And all the while, this Makera is CNCing the bridge that's going to span across. And there's our little boat, of course. Do you remember, this isn't it's not a diorama, it's not a scale model, it's an art piece. So if you think that doesn't look like your boat, it's close enough for me. Okay, so this here is the table all clamped up with the border and everything ready to pour. So we've got 4 sash clamps going lengthways and 2 going across the middle. That's all glued and pinned, so we used Andy's nail gun. This is still going on. I've kind of messed up some of the tool path on the bridge, so I might have to do some minor repairs. I think it'll still look good, and I think I'll still be, you know, pleased with it, but I can't run the whole print again. It just take too long. I say print, the whole milling process again, it would just take too long. So I'm going to live with it as it is, because I'm just being fickle. It's fine. It's just a few bits. I'm like, oh, that's a shame. But it's going to look really good. And then, so my plan is to pour a very thin layer of epoxy, sprinkle a little bit of sand, put a few stones maybe, some bits of wood perhaps with veiny edge to look like stones coming up through the water, then pour a bit more epoxy, wait for it to go tacky, push the boat into it, don't want it to tip over, so that's going to have to be like, oh, how am I going to stop the boat tipping over while the epoxy's setting? Might have to use a piece of tape across the top or something, and when that's gone off, then I'll do the sky, if you know what I mean, and put the bridge in and stuff. So there's a fair bit to do yet. Here's my little bridge. Look, little cute little bridge. It's so cute. It's Menai Bridge, right, which joins the mainland to Anglesey. It's not perfect, but it's tiny and I love it. Let me just talk through what went wrong with the mill. So this webbing here, I mean, it's incredibly thin and it just broke along the grain, and then it's lost these legs here, but that's okay. I don't mind that. I can work with that because the terrain it's going onto isn't a direct replica of the terrain of the actual land, you know, with the mainland here and Anglesey here. So I've got to kind of make this fit the wood that I've got anyway. So I've got to shape maybe the wood, the bark on the table will kind of give some features to that, and I've got to cut, you know, make it fit at that end because I've cut that off there. Look, so what I'm going to do now is look at seating these in position, so that I can then start thinking about doing my first pour of epoxy, which is going to be a very, very thin pour, perhaps with a handful of sand in it. It's going to go sort of here, I think. Maybe even there. Maybe I do that kind of thing. Do you see? It doesn't have to. No, I don't think the bridge even goes across straight. I think it goes across like this. That'll be nice. So if I shape this a little bit, I need to take a bit of time here. Oh, I see. So I'm going to shape this to look right until I'm just happy with the way it looks. Because as I say, that isn't a direct replica of the mainland, and that's not a replica of Anglesey. It's an artistic thing. So, and I want it to be lower. I want it to be down here so that the legs of the bridge are kind of sunk into the water. It's pretty good, you know. It's pretty good. There we are. That's pretty much it, you know. I think that's going to look amazing. And then the boat at the other end. So it'll just have the two features. So we'll just have the two features. This boat at this end. Sorry, the bridge at this end. Yeah, and then the boat at the other end. I think that'll look absolutely fantastic. So it's not going to be too cluttered and too busy, but just enough to look nice. I'm really happy, look. So I've got my boat here. I know they're not to scale, and I don't care. The boat's here, sailing away from the bridge that it couldn't get under because it realised the bridge was too small. The boat is here, and that's just glued to that piece which is going to be under the water, and it's got a bit of heel on. I'm debating whether to put some masts on the boat and then cut them down. I probably should. And then the bridge is at this end, but of course the boat couldn't get under that bridge, and I, you know, don't care. That's all going to be epoxied up to this level with blue, slightly translucent blue, and then it's going to be clear above there. I might put, like I say, a couple of rocks here in the swellies or wherever it is. It's, you know, it's epoxy mixing time. So I'm going to start with just mixing a small amount, and I'm going to paint it on with a brush to get into all the little nooks and crannies and into the bark and places where the wood might gas off and let bubbles out. Because what I don't want to do is do a nice deep pour and then have bubbles coming out from the timber and creating bubbles in the epoxy resin. I'm using this stuff called J-Diction clear cast epoxy polyurethane pourable resin. Sorry, it's an epoxy pourable resin. It's designed specifically for river tables and jewellery and all that kind of stuff. So this isn't the first proper pour. This is a sealing coat to stop the wood from gassing off and creating bubbles in the next pour, which I probably might leave it to cure fully, or I might just leave it to go tacky before I do the pour.
Engineer, where are you headed? Carry me back to Tennessee. Oh, I got a little girl who's been waiting. Promised that she'd marry me. Mister, can we leave the sea? I'll shovel coal, Lord, to pay my fate. Gotta get this.
Okay, so the epoxy sealing coat has been painted on, and I've worked it all the way into the grain, so hopefully that will seal from any bubbles. I'm not going to epoxy over the top of the table, I don't think at the moment. I think I'm going to oil it, so it'll just be the river in the middle. I'm going to do the job on this table, and there's a reason for that. I think it's either Formica or melamine, neither of which epoxy will stick to. So the epoxy shouldn't stick to this, and if it does, I'll be able to prise it off. However, belt and braces, I've got some silicone release spray here. So I can put a load of silicone release spray on this table, and it's designed for prevent sticking, fusing and moisture ingress, non-staining, odorless, blah, 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 water repellent. So I'm just putting a coat of it. Yeah, it's only ever so thin, and I've got several tins of it, but I'm going belt and braces, so that I can now put the table back on here while the epoxy tacks off, and then I'll be able to do my pour. Now, the other thing that I'm going to do before I do the pour is use silicone caulking, silicone sealant around where the pour is going to go, so that this will break free from the table afterwards. So this is now clamped down to the worktop, and all of the areas that I'm going to be epoxy filling have been painted with a brushed coat of epoxy, pushed into all the little nooks and crannies where gases could escape from the epoxy. And that's the plan. It might not work, but it'll help if nothing else. Do you know what I think would be really nice is, you know, this slate that I did, it's got the Sailing Melody logo on. I think that would look really cool, kind of recessed into the top of the table, but not necessarily saying Sailing Melody. It could just say the boat name, Ocean Melody. So that'll look really nice, kind of sunk into the table there. That'll look pretty cool. We'll do that more towards the end though. The next thing to do, I think, is, yeah, that's pretty good now, is do the first pour of the resin for the ocean, for the water. So what I'm doing now is I'm using silicone to mount this. Ooh, a bit too much. I suppose you can't have too much. And the reason I'm doing that is I'm going to clamp this down to the worktop, and I'm using silicone to stop the to hold it down and to create a kind of a barrier to stop the epoxy sticking the whole table down, the whole of this down. It shouldn't anyway, because as I say, the work table that I'm working on is a Formica kind of, I know Formica and what have you are not the same thing, but neither of them will stick to epoxy. So this should separate quite easily, we'll see. If it doesn't, I'll be swearing. But I've got a solution for if it doesn't. And the reason I'm using silicone for this is because nothing sticks to silicone except silicone, which is always useful to remember. And then actually I can't do the pour until the morning because I want to give this silicone time to properly cure before I do the silicone, the pour of epoxy. And the same again, I'm using silicone release spray on the table itself. So the Formica tabletop won't really stick to the epoxy. The silicone release spray will help, and the silicone I put around the edge will create a wall. That's the plan. If it doesn't work, I shall cry. I probably don't need that much silicone, to be honest, but I'd rather have too much than too little. Okay. Right, now scrape off the excess. Do you know what? I don't like that boat there anyway. I'm going to move that. It's the next morning and I'm pretty much ready for the pour. I came down this morning and did a little bit of clean up. Obviously when I'd squeezed the new table down onto the melamine surface, it's bulged a little bit of that silicone sealant out, which is a little bit annoying. But I think it's going to be okay because obviously there'll be some sanding and clean up to do on the underside as well. But I think I'm now ready for the pour. So let's go. Stage one of the first pour is done, and I've attached the top of the boat to a lollipop stick, a popsicle stick, and just with a dab of glue so I can peel that off and clean that up. And I've got a few more things I want to do to this layer before I do the next pour. So here's my first pour. I've got my teal, pale blue, translucent sea poured up halfway. I've got the boat in here, perhaps a little bit closer on that wake, and I've put some extra tints in, some darker blue to sort of indicate a bit more of the swirl, a little bit of wake coming off the boat propeller here, because of course we're motoring. I've put some sand in here, just periodically, just a little bit, just to kind of give it a bit more texture. And then of course the tide is running this way, so we've got a bit of wake coming off the bridge and a bit off this fairway marker here, this marker post, safe watermark, dangerous watermark, whatever you want to call it. So now I'm going to wait for that to gel off. Before I put this in, I'm going to put this big rock in somewhere, which is going to be a navigational hazard. But I don't want to put that in yet because I don't want it to sink. So I'm going to wait for this to kind of gel off before I do the next pour.
You're going to think this is really crazy, but what I've done is I've got a heater under here, and then a tarpaulin over it, and then a duvet. So I've got the temperature up nice and warm in there, because obviously it's not the warmest temperature in this room. And rather than have to heat the whole room, I've got I've just tented it basically, all standoff, and it's all nice and safe. It's boxed in with some plywood and some pieces of aluminium sheet, and then a tarpaulin and a duvet to stay nice and toasty between the different pours and levels of epoxy. So this is where we're up to. The pour is all finished, this is all hard, but I'm going to leave it another at least 72 hours before I remove it from the table base, because I don't want it to all fall apart. I do actually need to top this up slightly, because if you notice at this end it's not quite full, so I'm going to do another quick little bit of top up here, and then I'm going to leave it alone, don't touch it, for probably over the weekend, maybe till the middle of next week. Then I can prise this off of the table that I've built it on and start to clean it up and polish it. So obviously all this will be polished back, the wood will all be oiled, but I think it's going to look absolutely fantastic. You're just going to have to wait until next episode to see how that continues, but I hope you've enjoyed watching the process. It's not perfect. Would I do these commercially and sell them? No. I'm not good enough at this. But am I happy with it for me and my boat? Absolutely. I think it looks really cool. It's got our boat, it's got our bridge, it's made out of timber that I've got from a friend. It's just really personal to the boat. And of course it's going to have the really cool slate boat name logo sunk into the timber here as well, either here or here. So it's going to look amazing. So I hope you've enjoyed watching that. That Carvera Air CNC machine is an astonishing thing, and we're going to be using it to do lots and lots of things on the boat, because there's several things on the boat that are broken that you can't get anymore, you know, so I can make them on the CNC machine. It'd be brilliant. Great, and if you've got any other ideas for stuff that you'd like to see me make with the Carvera that are boat related, I mean this is clearly boat related, let me know, because the more the better. I love playing with it. Cool. Thank you very much for watching. Leave us a comment, leave us a subscribe, give us a thumbs up. Thank you very much to our patrons and coffee guys. We love you all, and see you next week. Bye.